She dropped her ring into her purse like it was trash and not the thing I spent 2 paychecks on back in '97. I'm single tonight. Don't talk to me. I want to feel wanted again. That's what she said, loud enough for the bartender, the string quartet, and maybe God himself to hear. Laughter followed, sharp, cheap laughter from people we've known since our kids were in preschool. One woman actually raised her glass like Claire had just declared independence from some horrible dictatorship. I stood there holding 2 glasses of wine, one for her, the red one she always fake hated but still drank after her 3rd Chardonnay. My hand didn't shake. That was the part that surprised me. I didn't even blink. It was like my body had been waiting for this moment to arrive, had rehearsed how it would feel to watch the person you share a mortgage and memories with tell the room she's done pretending to respect you. She didn't even glance at me when she said it, didn't search for my eyes in the crowd or offer some pathetic wink to say it was a joke. Because it wasn't. That much was clear. People think betrayal comes with drama, screaming, storming out, some shattered glass. No, real betrayal comes with hors d'oeuvres, with string lights and polite applause and someone's aunt complimenting the roast beef while your wife strips away the last illusion of fidelity like it's a coat she's tired of wearing. And right there, while I was still standing like some extra in my own marriage, Samantha appeared. Claire's best friend of 20-something years, hair in a loose bun, glass of sparkling water, eyes sharp like she'd been waiting for this cue. She slid her hand around mine, not romantically, not even kindly, just firmly, and leaned in, her voice just above the music. "Come with me," she said, her grip tightening. "You need to see what she's been hiding. After this, you'll wish you never married her." I followed. What else was I supposed to do? The party kept going like nothing happened. The DJ switched from jazz to pop. Claire started dancing with someone's husband, Jeff maybe, or Alan. Didn't matter. I didn't look back. We walked across the Petersons' patio, past the garden where Claire once made me pose for Christmas photos, down a path to the guest house. Samantha didn't say another word until the door closed behind us. "She's been lying to you for years," she said flatly, opening a drawer and pulling out a small silver key attached to a keychain shaped like a sunflower. "And not just the kind of lying you suspect. Not the late meetings or the girls' weekends. I mean the real kind, the kind that comes with folders and passwords." My jaw didn't clench. My hands didn't shake. If anything, my body got quieter. "I found this last fall. She left it in my car. Said she'd be back for it. Never came. She handed me the key. And this?" Samantha opened a closet and retrieved a dusty lockbox. Inside was a hard drive. External. Old. Labeled in Claire's handwriting. "See backup, do not touch." I touched. We plugged it into her laptop. If you're still here reading, just a quick note, more than 97% of you listening never hit that subscribe button. It might seem like nothing, but it helps the team build stories like this. So if you're into it, consider tapping that button. It keeps us going. All right, back to Claire's Pandora's box. The folders were clinical. Legal. Finances. Photos. Plan B, in case Matt ever finds out. I clicked it. Budgets, lawyers' emails, an outline of exit steps, contingency plans, and a spreadsheet labeled Projected Freedom Date Q2 2025. But the worst part wasn't the planning. It was the practice. There were video clips, saved from her phone, of her rehearsing. "Yes, I just don't feel emotionally safe with Matthew anymore." Another clip. "I didn't want to say anything earlier, but Matthew's been different, cold." She practiced the delivery like an actor learning lines, sometimes with tears. Sometimes laughing after a failed take, sometimes asking her phone, "No, that sounded fake, right?" There was even one where she mimicked my voice. "Go on, Claire, just do what you want." Then she stared into the lens and whispered, "You're gonna lose everything." I closed the laptop. Samantha stood across from me, arms crossed, but her face looked more tired than smug. "I'm sorry," she said. "I waited too long. I didn't think she'd actually—" She stopped herself. "I didn't think she'd be cruel about it, but that stunt tonight, that was her signaling she thinks you're nothing." I didn't nod or cry. I just asked one question. "Where do I get a copy of this drive?" She pulled out another from a desk drawer. "Already done." The cursor blinked at me like it was daring me to open the folder. Plan B, in case Matt ever finds out. She really named it that, like I was some over-curious roommate and not her husband of 26 years. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone had an entire digital war chest ready for the moment I became inconvenient. I double-clicked. The folder opened to 23 files neatly labeled. No panic, no chaos, just surgical planning. Joint accounts, projections, new lease draft, custody assumptions, hypothetical, legal contact log. That one had dates, conversations. One entry was titled Notes from Initial Consult, told to wait for emotional justification, infidelity not required. I stared at that line for a full minute. Next to me, Samantha didn't move. She didn't speak either, just sat there, arms folded, watching the screen like someone who'd already read the final chapter but wasn't ready to spoil the twist. The video files were worse. One was Claire sitting on her yoga mat, lit by candlelight like she was about to teach a self-help class. Her tone calm, too calm. If Matt finds out, I'll just say we've been emotionally estranged. He doesn't talk about feelings. I'll cry if I have to. Next clip, her pacing in our bedroom. The exact spot where she made me laugh last Christmas by pretending to hate the ugly sweater I bought her. Mom says I shouldn't lie, but it's not a lie. It's just redirecting. Matt's passive. He won't fight back. And if he does, well, there's always Samantha. I looked over. Samantha blinked. Her jaw twitched once, just slightly. She used me? I asked quietly. She's used everyone, Samantha said. I just finally stopped pretending I didn't notice. I clicked the next video. This one hurt. Claire was on the phone, pacing again, her back to the camera. She was laughing. No, I don't feel guilty. Matt's safe. I can do what I want. He's like an emotional weighted blanket. He'll absorb the shock. She paused. Besides, if he ever got smart, I've got the Matt's been distant for years story preloaded. And the sister will back me. She owes me. Next file. A scanned letter. From her sister. Handwritten. Dated 5 months ago. Claire, here's the version of the letter you asked for. Just in case. Let me know if you want the one that makes it sound like Matt's depressed. It hit me then. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't some lost connection or slow erosion. This was strategy. Claire had been laying down her exit tiles like a game of dominoes, all lined up, all ready to fall. There was a separate folder called Insurance. Inside pictures of me, from behind, at the grocery store, walking the dog, watching TV, all dated, all captioned. Lonely, detached, classic Matt, doesn't ask questions. It wasn't enough to leave. She had to build a case, reconstruct reality. What was the plan? I asked, voice low. Take half, say I'm cold and distracted, walk off with a polished narrative. More than half, Samantha said. You'll see in the finances folder. She was right. Inside was a document called Asset Redistribution Phase 2. Claire had redlined our retirement account, adjusted figures on the cabin property, drafted a withdrawal strategy from an investment fund I didn't even know she knew about, and next to each note, a smiley face, literally, like this was some high school notebook doodle. There was even a journal entry. February 12th, told Matt I had cramps so I wouldn't have to go to his firm's dinner, took Andrew's car and drove to the winery. No guilt, just peace. Andrew. The name slipped past me like a breeze at first. Then I found the folder with his name on it, pictures, hotel receipts, audio clips, one where she said, "He still thinks I'm visiting my aunt. Can you believe that? I mean, if you're going to marry a man for stability, at least enjoy the perks." I closed the laptop. My fingers had gone numb. Not from shock, more like frostbite. Like I'd been standing in a freezer for years and only just realized it. "You sure you're okay?" Samantha asked. Her voice was soft now, but careful, like she was afraid touching me would make the whole moment shatter. "No," I replied, "but I've been okay for so long I forgot what it feels like to not be." She didn't speak after that, just handed me a yellow legal pad. "What's this?" "Steps," she said. "What I'd do if I were you." It wasn't a joke. She'd written them out like a checklist. Step 1, secure your assets. Step 2, find someone with a legal mind who doesn't need to advertise. Step 3, let her keep performing. Let her believe she's safe. The final line, Step 10, don't confront her. Collapse her version of the story instead. Quietly, irrevocably. The lawyer's office wasn't an office. It was a converted garage behind a house that hadn't been repainted since 2004, with a cracked ceramic owl on the porch and a busted wind chime that hadn't made a sound in years. Perfect. Invisible. The man who sat across from me used to coach my son's Little League team. Now he handled quiet dissolutions for people who didn't want courtroom drama, just exits with receipts. You brought the drive? He asked. I slid it across the table, still warm from my jacket pocket. She left it at a friend's place. He plugged it into an ancient Lenovo and adjusted his glasses. No commentary, just clicks, scrolls, nods. Then he stopped at the video file where Claire practiced crying. She rehearsed this? I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. Smart woman, he muttered. Dangerous too, but this is sloppier than it looks. She cataloged her own intent. And if that wasn't enough, plan B, in case Matt ever finds out, she labeled it like a damn Bond villain. She thought I wouldn't, I said. He smiled, tired and toothless. They always do. He started copying the drive contents onto his own encrypted device, the kind that looked like it could survive a small explosion. We're not going to confront her, he said. We're going to let her decorate the gallows with her own rope, but we'll tighten the knot behind the scenes. That's when the checklist began. First, all my passwords, bank accounts, brokerage, pension access. Claire hadn't touched them yet, but that wasn't the point. The point was making sure if she reached for the lever, it wasn't connected anymore. I changed every single one, MFA, biometrics, access alerts. If she blinked wrong near my money, I'd know. Second, property review. We owned 3 together. The primary home, which was technically in my name due to a mortgage quirk from the refinance back in '08, a rental condo in Sarasota, and the cabin upstate. The cabin. I'd nearly forgotten about it, unused for months except Claire's occasional retreat weekends. I'd installed motion cameras up there years ago after a bear incident. The cameras weren't top of the line, but they uploaded to a cloud folder tied to my old work email, one she never had access to. I want that footage, I told him. Smart. If she's been using it for anything sketchy, it'll show. He helped me file the request and reactivate the login. The data sync would take a few hours. In the meantime, he combed through her notes, particularly one spreadsheet marked Q2 liquidity forecast. See this? He said, pointing to a cell marked exit assets. She's planning to liquidate by June, probably assuming you'll be passive or too embarrassed to contest. She's not wrong. I was passive, I said. He looked up. Not anymore. The next step was the prenup. We'd signed it over 2 decades ago, back when Claire was still living in a 1-bedroom above a nail salon, and I was managing retail logistics in Toledo. It was tucked in a fireproof box in my closet, beneath old tax returns and some photos of a dog we buried 10 years ago. I hadn't looked at it in years. He skimmed it like a man reading obituaries, bored but attentive. Clause 14, he said finally, tapping the document. This is your sword. I read it. Any proven extramarital infidelity or intentional misrepresentation of financial plans during the pre-divorce period results in full forfeiture of negotiated asset split. Buried deep, probably thrown in by her old lawyer to sound scary, but enforceable. And now, alive. You have the proof, the footage, the notes, the timelines. Don't get greedy, the lawyer warned. Don't rage. Just build, layer by layer. What if she accelerates, I asked. If she thinks I'm pulling away? She won't, not yet. She thinks you're still the man holding wine glasses while she auditions for new attention at parties. I leaned back, folded my arms. I'm not, he nodded, approving. Good. Then here's what comes next. You play along, you smile, you keep dinner plans. Let her believe she's winning. Let her overplay. And when she does, he smiled again, that same tired grin. We flipped the board, but not until the last piece is on it. As I drove home, I rehearsed my own lines. Not lies, just silence, detachment, patience. Claire greeted me at the door with her usual chirp. How was the store? I smiled. Fine. Picked up some wine. She took the bottle and kissed my cheek. Movie night? She asked. Sounds great. She had no idea that her performance had already been recorded and the credits were rolling. The cabin hadn't changed much in years. Same crooked porch light, same eagle wind vane missing half a wing. But watching it from my laptop, detached and pixelated through a motion-triggered camera feed, it felt like I was looking at a crime scene. And, in a way, I was. The footage came in short clips, stitched together by motion. Open door, shadows, figures passing through hallways. I scrubbed forward. The date was correct. March 9th. That weekend, Claire told me she was visiting her aunt after a minor surgery. She left with a casserole and a suitcase, kissed my cheek, said, "Don't wait up." She didn't go to her aunt's. At 7:43 p.m., the side door of the cabin opened. Claire walked in first, alone at first glance. She dropped her bag by the couch and went into the kitchen. A few minutes later, another figure followed, Andrew. The name had floated around before. A former co-worker from that consulting firm in Baltimore. The one who texted her once about a reunion thing. The one she always said I'd like if I ever met him. Real old school, like you. He wasn't old school. He was 10 years younger than Claire and had the posture of someone who never worried about consequences. The footage was black and white, the audio grainy, but you didn't need perfect resolution to catch body language. She greeted him like someone who'd done it many times before. He wrapped his arms around her waist. She laughed into his neck. They stayed close, sat on the same side of the couch, shared a bottle of wine, one of the good ones I kept stocked there for anniversaries. At 1:28 a.m., they moved into the hallway. The motion camera by the bedroom door triggered at 2:11. At 2:14, a clip began, audio barely audible under the wind outside. But I leaned in. Her voice first. "I just need a few more weeks." Matt's clueless. Then Andrews, "He's still paying your insurance?" Claire, a snort, then a pause. "Yep, health, dental, all of it. And he won't notice when I switch jobs. I already drafted the new benefits packet with my name only. Just need to get the offer." "Man," Andrew laughed, "that guy deserves a trophy for gullibility." She giggled. "Or a lobotomy." I paused the footage. Her face was turned toward him, chin tilted up. The same expression she had in our wedding photos. The same smile I used to believe meant something. I clicked through a few more clips. Fragments of conversation. Her talking about potential apartments. Him asking if she'd ditched the Tahoe yet. My Tahoe. Registered in my name, which I hadn't seen in 2 months but assumed was just at the dealership for maintenance. There was one moment, short, forgettable in any other context, where she opened her phone and flashed a photo of me. I only saw it for half a second, but I recognized the shirt. Red flannel. "I wore it the weekend I cleaned the gutters alone because she was too drained to help." She showed the photo to Andrew like it was a joke. "He was still trying then," she said. "Sweet, right?" He laughed. Something cracked then, but not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't explosive, it was surgical. The kind of clean break that doesn't even bleed until later. The kind that lets air in and suddenly makes you realize just how long you've been suffocating. I closed the laptop. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't even angry. I was still, like the moment after a storm, when the trees are stripped and the wind has vanished, and you finally see what's left standing. She hadn't just been preparing to leave. She'd already left. Emotionally, morally, tactically. And the worst part, she'd rehearsed the exit so well that even in her betrayal, she'd left room for plausible deniability. There was no confession, no scandalous letter, just 1,000 subtle betrayals stacked like cards, each one flimsy alone but together unshakable. I stared at the cabin footage one more time, at her body language, at his casual grip on her hip, at the way she glanced over her shoulder like she didn't even care if she was seen. She wasn't worried about being caught, even because she thought I'd never look. But I had. And now that I had, I wasn't going to rage. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to warn her. No, she wanted a few more weeks. She'd get them. But they wouldn't unfold the way she'd planned. The night she said too much, everything felt staged. Not dramatic, more like theater for one. Claire set the table with linen napkins, uncorked a bottle of the wine I usually reserve for birthdays, and cooked something elaborate enough to warrant an apology if it had gone wrong. But it hadn't. Everything was perfect. That's what made it surreal. She floated through the kitchen, humming. Occasionally she brushed my arm, complimented my shirt, one she'd previously called too accountant. It was as if she'd decided to rerun the role of the loving wife and fast forward. Except now I knew the lines weren't hers. They were borrowed, scripted, practiced. Over dinner, she poured herself a second glass before sitting. "I'm thinking of doing a girls' spa weekend in Asheville," she said, twirling pasta around her fork like the sentence was nothing more than weather talk. I nodded. "You deserve it." She gave me a look, a flash of amusement and something sharper. "Don't I always?" I smiled back. "Always." That was the scene. No plates shattered, no chairs thrown, just two people, one of whom believed the other was still asleep at the wheel. She cleared the dishes while I dried. She left her phone on the counter, screen up, brightness high. I wondered if that was a test or just her growing confidence that I wouldn't look. She went to shower around 10. The phone buzzed once. I didn't move. Then again. Then again, longer this time. A preview lit up the screen. Need that clause hidden before he sees it. You promised. We're exposed if he finds it. Cut off. I picked up the phone, didn't unlock it, just took a photo of the message preview with mine. Then I set it back exactly as it was, at the same angle, screen facing up. I didn't need to read the full message. I already knew what clause they were talking about. Clause 14. The prenup had felt ornamental when we signed it. Claire's idea, ironically, said it made her feel empowered, like she wasn't marrying for money. At the time, I thought that was noble. We were both broke and idealistic. She was working on a nonprofit's marketing team, and I was still drowning in commercial supply chain spreadsheets. Neither of us had anything to protect, so the document sat in a drawer for decades, untouched and irrelevant. Until now, until she realized I wasn't broke anymore, that I'd quietly made something of myself over the last few years, while she'd been busy reconnecting with herself at wellness retreats and digital detoxes that cost more than our old annual vacations. And now that I had something to lose, she had something to plan. I went to the study. It was almost midnight. I opened the safe. Inside, tax folders, an old handgun I hadn't fired since 2006, and the prenup, cream-colored, embossed. I pulled it out, placed it gently on the desk, and flipped to the second half. Section 7 onward. There it was. Clause 14. In the event that either party is found to have engaged in extramarital activity or pre-divorce concealment of financial restructuring efforts, said party shall forfeit entitlement to spousal support and any claims to jointly accumulated assets effective immediately upon submission of documented proof. I sat back. There was nothing metaphorical about this clause. It wasn't open to interpretation. It was binding. And now, thanks to her digital slip-up and the footage from the cabin, I had the start of that documented proof. I reached for my legal pad and started listing, not just the files and screenshots, not just the dates and quotes. I listed behavior patterns, bank anomalies, travel overlaps, every cover story she'd used in the last year that now read differently. I included things she wouldn't think of, like the expense app she used when she traveled. I'd never paid it much attention, but I'd seen a Lyft receipt last month for a destination 2 blocks from Andrew's known address. She'd labeled it Meditation Studio. I remembered because she complained the driver was rude. I'd apologized for it. Like a fool, I kept writing. By the time she stepped out of the bathroom in her silk robe, hair wrapped in a towel, humming that same nothing song, I had 3 full pages. She walked into the room and smiled. "What are you working on this late?" she asked. "Just organizing some tax stuff," I said. "You know, getting everything in order." She leaned down, kissed the top of my head. "That's why I married you. Always so responsible." I smiled. Still am. As she walked away, I didn't watch her. I watched the prenup, and I underlined one line of Clause 14 3 times in red, effective immediately upon submission of documented proof, not emotional proof, not suspicion, documented. She'd always loved spa weekends. She had no idea this next one would be her last as my wife. Clause 14 was written in the same legal jargon Claire used to mock when we first signed the prenup. Back then, she called it scorched earth insurance. Said it was a joke. Little hammer we'll never need to use. I didn't argue. I just signed. Because back then, I trusted her the way you trust a bridge you've crossed 100 times without ever thinking it might give way. Now I read it like scripture. The wording was dry, surgically precise. If either party is found to have willfully engaged in extramarital conduct or deliberate financial obfuscation in preparation for divorce proceedings, all future claim to marital property shall be void as of the date said documentation is submitted to counsel. Translation: if she cheated and hid money plans, she walked away with nothing. That's what Clause 14 meant, and Claire, in all her arrogance, had practically annotated it for me. I scheduled another meeting with the attorney. Early morning, cold coffee, blinds drawn. He took the hard drive, the footage, the message screenshot, and the expense overlaps and laid them out like forensic evidence. It wasn't dramatic, it was clinical. He nodded slowly as he read. This is enough, more than enough. Between the footage at the cabin, the internal email about hiding the clause, and the dates on those bank transfers to an account she opened under her maiden name, she's exposed. He handed me a packet. Here's the trigger notice. We won't file it in court yet, but it's ready. Once she's served, all shared property freezes. Her lawyer will understand what that means. And she won't see it coming? I asked. He smiled faintly. She thinks you're still 10 steps behind. That's her only mistake. And it's the one we'll leverage. He was right. Claire was still performing, still acting like nothing had changed. She'd spent the past week planning a wellness retreat with Samantha, which was rich, considering Samantha hadn't returned her calls since the party. Claire assumed it was about some petty drama. Sam's being weird lately, she told me one night. You know how she gets. Moody. Maybe I didn't compliment her enough at that party. I just nodded. You should talk to her. She sighed. I will. After the retreat. I'm too burned out to chase her right now. Burned out. From what, exactly? Over the next few days, I did what I'd always done. Smiled, listened, paid the bills. But inside I wasn't waiting. I was stacking dominoes. I called our CPA under the guise of organizing our estate planning. I had them verify the latest account balances and begin quietly segmenting my business assets. Claire never asked why I suddenly wanted to split LLC distributions. She thought it was just man stuff. Meanwhile, I worked with the attorney to pre-fill the post-trigger transfer documents. The cabin, the Sarasota condo, the accounts. Everything currently in my name stayed there. Everything jointly held was prepared for reassignment. Legally airtight. Irrevocable once triggered. The strategy was simple. Let her keep dancing, thinking the music was still playing. And when the time came, cut the power, not the volume. You'll want to make it public, the attorney said, not a spectacle, just visible enough that it sticks. You don't need to humiliate her. The silence will do that. How public? Something subtle, one symbolic act, delivered at the right moment in the right room. Make it quiet, but let it echo. I went home that night and sat in the living room, watching Claire scroll on her phone. She looked up and smiled. What? She asked. Nothing, I said. You look relaxed. She stretched. Finally, I've needed this reset for months. I kept my face neutral. Well, enjoy it. Reset everything. And that was the thing, really. She had reset everything, her loyalty, her plans, her story. But she'd left her tracks like wet footprints across a marble floor. All I had to do was follow them. By the end of the week, Samantha called. Is it time? She asked. Almost. She has no idea, Matt. I know, I said, and I'm not going to warn her. Then what are you going to do? I paused. I'm going to let her pick the venue. Because it was never about vengeance. It was about letting her believe she still controlled the narrative, right up to the final sentence, when I'd take the pen from her hand and sign it myself. 3 weeks passed, and Claire's confidence grew louder, more artificial. She'd begun to hum around the house again, reheating the same fake cheer she used to weaponize at dinner parties. She even kissed my cheek twice that week, both times while texting someone else mid-hug. I let her. She made her own coffee, packed her own bags, even joked once, "Don't miss me too much while I'm gone." I said I'd try. Then came Samantha's retirement party. The Petersons hosted again. Same backyard, same champagne flutes, same faux elegant paper lanterns. The social circle rotated back in like nothing had happened. Claire arrived alone. Deliberate choice. She wore a dress I hadn't seen in years. Red, backless, designed for eyes. The kind she used to reserve for our anniversaries. Back when anniversaries meant something. Her lipstick was precise, her heels unforgiving. And her laugh. It showed teeth. Matt's been off lately, she said loudly to a pair of women near the hors d'oeuvres. Very distracted. I think he's just going through that late life reevaluation phase. You know how men get. More laughter. Forced. She kept adjusting her purse like it had secrets inside, like she needed a distraction from wondering if anyone still believed her version of things. I arrived exactly 1 hour after her, navy suit, gray shirt, no tie, hair still damp from a quiet shower, no fanfare, no grand entrance, just walked in and greeted people like I hadn't just armed the most elegant detonation of my life. Samantha spotted me first. Her eyes flicked to my hand. Small black box, no bigger than a wallet. Then to Claire. Claire clocked me from across the patio. She froze just half a second too long before moving toward me with that careful gait, hips first, smile second. Didn't know you were coming, she said. Voice dipped in mock sweetness. I shrugged, didn't want to miss your performance. She narrowed her eyes. Don't start. I smiled and handed her the box. It was matte black, no label. Just a thin silver ribbon. I didn't say a word, just waited. She stared at it, still smiling for the guests. What's this? Something I found lying around, I said. Thought you might want it back. She started to speak, then stopped. The curiosity won. She opened it. Her wedding ring was nestled inside, right where she left it, dropped in her purse like a gum wrapper the night she declared herself single at someone else's anniversary party. Below it, on a small square of black foam, a USB, Claire's fingers twitched. What is this? She asked, low now, the public smile melting. You'll figure it out, I said. Eventually? A few guests turned toward us, sensing the shift, that static in the air before a thunderclap. I turned before she could reply and walked toward the bar. No dramatic scene, no shouting match, just a carefully placed object, a planted seed, and a stage she no longer controlled. Samantha walked up beside Claire moments later. I didn't hear what she said, but I saw Claire's lips tighten, her fingers closing around the box like it might explode. She retreated then, into the guest house where it was quiet, where she could be alone, where she could plug in a USB that would play back her own voice, her own smile, her own lies, compiled, time-stamped, legally formatted. And just like that, the party continued. Someone toasted Samantha. Someone refilled my glass. But Claire, she stayed gone. I didn't follow, because that wasn't the scene anymore. The curtain had already dropped. The door to Samantha's guest room clicked shut behind Claire with a precision that suggested she'd done this before, slipping away mid-party, fixing her image in the mirror before it cracked. She still had the box clutched in one hand. Her other hand trembled slightly, not that she'd ever admit it. She set the box on the bed, unwrapped the USB, and pulled out her tablet. Her movements were quick but not rushed. She still believed she could control this, smooth it out with charm, with one well-timed tear, with a call to the right lawyer. That false confidence hadn't drained yet, but it was thinning. The screen lit up. Her tablet recognized the drive. No password prompt. No traps. Just a series of folders, each named plainly. Home Cam Cabin Feed Financial Review. Legal calls Claire Raw. She clicked through Claire Raw first. Curiosity, vanity, maybe both. It opened to video files, her in different outfits, different moods, all recorded, all real. She watched herself in a fuzzy sweatshirt, wine glass in hand, whispering into her phone, "He's harmless. Still believes I'm visiting my aunt." Another clip, her in front of a mirror, fixing her hair. "When it ends, I'll tell people we just grew apart. That's still noble, right?" The sound of her own voice, unedited, unspun, made her chest tighten. She moved to financial review, PDFs, screenshots, wire transfers, one labeled Claire Agent Bank Reallocation, XLSX. The exact spreadsheet she'd buried in a subfolder, assuming no one would know where to look. Someone had known. Legal calls was worse, a recording, her voice speaking to a lawyer. "I don't want alimony. I just want the house and the equity from the cabin. He won't fight. He never does." Another. "We'll wait until Q2. He's usually too busy with tax season to notice anything." She swiped away, her fingers more frantic now. Cabin feed loaded next. The screen filled with grainy footage of her stepping into the cabin, her smile, the soft lighting, Andrew's arm around her waist. Then audio. "Matt's clueless. Give me a few more weeks." Andrew. "He's still paying your insurance?" Her. "Yep, health, dental, all of it. He's still useful." Claire jerked back from the tablet as if it had burned her, but the file that paralyzed her was at the bottom of the drive, in the main directory, standing apart. Clause 14 trigger.mp4. She hesitated. Her finger hovered over the file. Then she tapped. It opened to a black screen, then a slow fade-in montage, clips, date-stamped, layered with piano music soft enough to mock her, her own voice stitched together like a confession. "Matt's just funding my reset. He's never going to see it coming. I've already got the separation timeline mapped out. The cabin's mine. The condo's a bonus." Cut to Andrew's voice. "So you'll tell him when?" Then hers, laughing. "Never, unless he finds out." The screen went black again. A final title card appeared, white text, documentation delivered, clause 14 activated, then silence. Claire's hands trembled violently. She tried to swipe the screen but dropped the tablet onto the floor with a soft thud that felt louder than the entire party outside. She sank to her knees, not in drama, but in sheer disbelief. She wasn't watching a threat. She was watching the future that had already started. Her weaponized image, curated, rehearsed, flirty, invincible, had been reverse-engineered into a liability, into legal proof. She had walked straight into the trap, dragging her own archive behind her. Claire scrambled to pick up the tablet. The screen cracked diagonally but still glowed. She reopened the USB. Maybe, just maybe, there was a folder she could delete, a trace she could erase, but every folder was read-only. Locked, backed up to the cloud. She knew that because she used the same system herself. That's when the dread cracked through the performance. She didn't cry, not yet. Instead, she did the one thing she hadn't done in years. She checked her reflection in the mirror and saw something unfamiliar. Fear. Claire walked into the house like she hadn't spent the night unraveling, like she hadn't seen herself dismantled frame by frame on a screen in Samantha's guest room. Her heels clicked too loudly on the hardwood. Her coat was still off her shoulders, and she tried, God help her, to smile. It didn't land. She froze in the doorway when she saw the suitcase. Then the second one. Then the file boxes stacked near the hall. Matthew was at the kitchen counter, slipping a folder into a manila envelope, calm, focused, not theatrical, no rage, no how could you, just done. Packing? She asked, voice tight. For clarity, he replied. Where are you going? He didn't look up. Nowhere. You are. She blinked. What? He walked over, handed her the envelope. Inside, her wedding ring, the printed screenshots, a notarized trigger filing, and a full divorce package. Every page signed, every detail sorted. I'm not mad, Matthew said, his voice quiet but carved from granite. You've just helped me finalize everything. She laughed, sharp and nervous. Matt, come on. This is insane. We can talk. No, he said, folding his arms. We can't. That's what the USB was for. That was the conversation, the whole thing. She opened the folder, scanning the pages. No alimony? Are you kidding me? You can't do this. We've been married 26 years. He held up one finger. Clause 14, he said, which you knew about, which you joked about, which you then tripped with the enthusiasm of someone jumping on a landmine. Her face twisted. You don't get to make this unilateral. Matthew stepped closer. You concealed financial restructuring, Claire. You opened new accounts. You staged an exit. You committed to it. In writing, on camera, in stereo. I was protecting myself, she shouted. You've been distant for years. He didn't flinch. And you've been dishonest for months. If we're playing the who started it game, I've got timestamps. She threw the folder at his chest. It bounced off, paper spilling. I made one mistake, she hissed, and you're going to throw everything away over that. He bent slowly, picked up the papers, brushed off a footprint. You didn't make one mistake, he said. You made a series of coordinated moves over a year-long timeline, complete with supporting documentation and rehearsed alibis. She moved toward him, teeth bared. I sacrificed for you. I stayed when you were nothing. I built your confidence back after the layoffs, after your father died. Don't forget that. He met her eyes, and for the first time in years, she saw nothing left for her to manipulate. Remember when you said you wanted to feel wanted again? He asked, voice even. Her lips parted. She hesitated, confused, like she'd forgotten she ever said it, like that version of her had belonged to someone else. He stepped closer. Well, it turns out, he tilted his head, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. I want peace, more than I ever wanted you. She stood there, stunned. No savings, he added. No stake in the cabin. The prenup held. You'll regret this, she whispered, but it lacked all the venom she was used to summoning. No, he said. I'll recover from it. There's a difference. She stepped back toward the door, as if the house itself had grown hostile. And in a way, it had. Every inch of it had stopped bending around her. Matthew didn't follow, didn't slam anything, just turned back to his files. The sound of her heels retreating down the driveway wasn't satisfying. It wasn't triumphant. It was quiet and final. She'd spent years Planning her exit, she just didn't realize the door would swing closed behind her. 2 days later, the group chat Claire once curated like a personal gallery of her social life. Vacation pics, brunch plans, faux deep quotes about evolving past mediocre men, lit up with a single ping. Matthew's name. Or rather, his number. She hadn't saved it under anything but Matt home years ago, and that name didn't show this time. Just digits, cold, anonymous, final. The photo loaded instantly. Claire at the Petersons' anniversary party, laughing, head tilted back, a wine glass in one hand, the other dropping her wedding ring into her purse. The flash caught the glint just right, her fingers open, the band midair. Everyone around her was clapping or smirking, frozen mid-toast. You could almost hear her voice in the image. I'm single tonight. Don't talk to me. I want to feel wanted again. Below the photo, Matthew's message. This was the moment she ended her marriage. I just took notes. Silence followed. Then slowly, one by one, the members of the chat began to disappear. Nina left first, used to laugh at all of Claire's stories about how Matt just doesn't get passion anymore. Then Lauren, who had encouraged her to lean into independence. Then Carla, quiet exit, no message. The ones who stayed said nothing, not even emojis, except Samantha. She replied 5 minutes later, just one sentence. Told you not to test him. Claire didn't respond, not because she didn't have anything to say. She typed and deleted 6 messages. Thought about calling Samantha. Thought about sending a private voice note clarifying everything. But what could she clarify? That she didn't really mean it? That she was just joking? That Matthew had overreacted? Every possible excuse fell apart the moment she looked at that photo again, because it wasn't a gotcha moment. It wasn't hacked or stolen. It wasn't taken from some private stash. It was just truth, candid, undeniable. Claire tried to reframe it, tried to tell herself it was petty, that he was just being vindictive. But beneath the impulse to spin, to rewrite, to rescue the narrative, there was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Stillness. The kind that settles in a house after you've been the last to leave. She closed the chat, reopened it, no new messages. The timestamp on Matthew's photo, 11:48 a.m. He'd probably sent it while drinking his coffee. Calm, intentional, no commentary, no rage, just proof. And not just to her, to them, the people she thought would rally, the ones she'd entertained for years, with little jabs and smirks about how marriage is just long-term negotiations. They were gone now, not blocked, not exiled. They just left, not because of what she did. Because of how proudly she did it. She opened her contacts, scrolled, too many names, too many threads, and yet none of them felt reachable. Not really. No one to vent to, no one to rally with, no one to spin the story for. She tapped on Samantha's thread, typed, "Are you really going to take his side?" Backspaced. Tried again. You know it wasn't like that. Backspaced. Finally, she typed, "Can we talk?" She watched the dots. Then nothing. The message was never read. Claire sat back in the quiet of her living room, phone resting on her lap, untouched. She'd wanted to feel wanted. Now nobody wanted to hear her side. She wasn't single. She was irrelevant.